Co-valedictorian Tara Hammonds will now give her valedictory address.
Mrs. Tennyson, Father Winzenberg, Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Collins, trustees, faculty, parents, friends, and of course, my fellow graduates of the class of 2014. I am so incredibly honored to be given the opportunity to speak to you all today. 4 years ago, just before starting freshman year at Sacred Heart, we were nervous, dubious, unready after our 8th grade glory to return to being the babies of the school. We were having that awkward first phone conversation with our peer leaders whom we would come to love. We were stressing out about the first of many preseasons. We were filling our wardrobes with fun, creative, back-to-school clothes, which, for all intents and purposes, actually consisted of several plaid skirts, a couple white polos, and a navy blue sweater. We were teetering on the edge of the rabbit hole, skeptical about what we would find if we jumped. But we jumped nonetheless, and to our delight, found ourselves in a wonderland of incredible teachers, unbeatable traditions, and beautiful memories. I've always loved the story of Alice in Wonderland because it portrays a fantastical and beautifully impossible world where anything can happen. Alice herself says, "Why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." Absolute impossibilities occur every day within the walls of Sacred Heart. Alice was able to find 6 impossible things in Wonderland, and it didn't take me long to recognize 6 of the many impossibilities of our time here at Sacred Heart. 1. Even more impossible than eating a cake labeled "Eat Me," which causes a tremendous growth spurt, is the consumption of 14 pink frosted Mater donuts in one sitting. 2. A talking caterpillar blowing alphabet letters from his pipe is rather impossible. But even more impossible is the collection of, in my case at least, 18,606 letters to create a 10-plus page research paper for senior seminar. 3. Thought that the riddle, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" was impossible to answer? The truly impossible thing is the ability of us Sacred Heart girls to answer this answerless riddle with responses such as, if both the raven and the writing desk are placed in a closed box with no observers, they could quite possibly exist in 2 separate universes simultaneously, as we learned through our merry examination of the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment. 4. Alice encounters the impossibility of using a flamingo as a croquet mallet and hedgehogs as croquet balls. Well, Alice, I challenge you with the impossible task of fending off a ferocious mountain lion prowling our school grounds using only lacrosse sticks, golf clubs, softball bats, tennis rackets, and blowhorns. 5. Alice, rather impossibly, must swim in a pool of her own tears. Well, I know that many of us, just as impossibly, have swum in pools of our own tears after receiving back those doc tests freshman year, before an English in-class essay, or during the infernal week before AP testing. 6. Alice meets the Cheshire Cat, an impossible talking cat who never stops grinning. Here at Sacred Heart, even more impossible than said beaming feline are the perpetual smiles that I see all day, every day, from every one of you, students and faculty, which impossibly actually make me want to come to school every day. There have been very few days during my 4 years here when I have rolled out of bed and not wanted to come to school, because our time here has truly been an impossible thing. There are so few places in this world where you can arrive looking disheveled, wear the same thing every day, take power naps in the core center, have spontaneous dance parties, eat as much as you want, spend every lunch chatting with faculty members about shopping and boys, actually enjoy learning, and not be judged for any of it. I was sitting with my friends at lunch a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden we sort of had this epiphany where we realized that A, we're pretty smart, B, we love to learn, C, we choose to spend Friday nights with our families as opposed to attending wild parties, and D, we love spending time at school, as in we choose to come to school, even if we don't have to. And so we were eating our lunch, and then we all kind of looked at each other at the same time and had the simultaneous realization that we would probably get beat up if we went to any other school. But not here, because Sacred Heart embraces enthusiasm for learning, Christian values, and unique individual identities. And I think we'll all miss that so much. The fact that Sacred Heart is a home where we can be anyone we want to be, and where we can be loved for who we are and what we do. Sacred Heart is a place of so much enthusiasm, both inside and outside of the classroom, and demonstrated by our incredible faculty, staff, and administration, our wonderful parents, and of course by all the students here. We are so enthusiastic in the classroom that some of us, keep in mind that we were third trimester seniors, chose to spend our free periods attending other classes or chatting with teachers because we loved learning so much. And on the playing field. Back during soccer season, we were begging Logan to have extra practices after our season had ended because we weren't ready for the team and sport that we loved so much to end. Or with the arts. I am not a particularly artistically inclined person. I specialize in the drawing of stick figures and singing in the shower. But I know that some of us, that being the royal we, not me personally, that some of us are so enthusiastic about the arts that we skip lunch so that we can work on our art portfolio or practice for the musical. The enthusiasm here for everything that we do is a beautiful thing and is one of the biggest things that we must take with us to wherever we go in the future, because we live in a world that is desperately in need of our enthusiasm and our passion. If you've talked to me within the past couple of weeks, or honestly within the past year, you probably know that I am absolutely terrified of graduating. The idea of leaving such a wonderful and safe home where I can be myself 24/7 terrifies me. Really, given the choice, I would jump at the opportunity to spend 4 more years here. Maybe, minus the stress of the college application process. I tend to dwell in the past. But, as Alice says, it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. I wish so much that we could go back and relive the friendships and memories that made the past 4 years into a wonderland of our own. But we are different people now who are ready to move on and take on new challenges. That's not to say that when we leave this place, we will stop being Sacred Heart girls, because we will all carry what this school has given us throughout the rest of our lives. But such an incredible future is waiting for us just around the corner, a future most likely without green plaid skirts, conges, and pink donuts. The world is just waiting to be shaped, to be made into as much of a wonderland as Sacred Heart has been. Alice says, "The world has absolutely no sense. Who's stopping us from inventing one?" We don't need to follow a white rabbit with a pocket watch through our world. We have the tools and the ability to forge our own path and create the wonderland that we envision the world to be. So, class of 2014, let's pack up our plaid skirts and polos, our calculus and philosophy books, our intellectual values, our social awareness, our faith, our friendships, and our Sacred Heart roots, and let's go invent our world. Thank you.
Co-valedictorian Christina Huchro will now give her address.
Johnson, Father Winsenberg, Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Collins, trustees, faculty, parents, friends, and of course, the extraordinary graduating class of 2014. Like my esteemed co-valedictorian, I too thought I'd base my valedictory address on a meaningful piece of literature that has influenced my life. Unlike Tara, however, I've set my standards a little lower and want to talk to you today about my favorite fairy tale, Jack and the Beanstalk. In first grade, I attended the celebration of the arts for my older sister, Allie. Allie had a crucial role in the play. She was the Beanstalk in Mrs. DeChapel's production of Jack and the Beanstalk. Valiantly, Allie stood on the edge of the stage for the entire play, waving her arms dramatically to capture the true essence of the Beanstalk. I was personally inspired, and ever since that day, Jack and the Beanstalk has held a special place in my heart. At this point, many of you are probably thinking that, like Allie, it was the Beanstalk that was the source of my inspiration, seeing as I'm currently 5'11 3/4 and have been this tall since about first grade. However, the truth of the matter is that Jack is my hero. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Jack's tale, here's a little refresher. Jack is sent by his mother to the market to sell the family cow. On his way into town, Jack encounters a somewhat seedy, no pun intended, old man who offers Jack 5 magic beans in exchange for the cow. At first hesitant, Jack eventually agrees to the transaction and takes the beans home to his mother. Jack's decision to gamble his family's entire future on 5 magical beans seems, what's the politically correct way to say this, really stupid. But let's take a few minutes to talk about why Jack is so special and how we, as the class of 2014, can relate to this fairy tale hero. It's at this point in the conversation that my parents might be thinking that after all of these years of private school education, please tell me you aspire to be something more than a simpleton like Jack. But I see Jack not as a simpleton, but more as a seer. Given the choices presented to Jack, the ordinary course of action would be to continue to dodge the old man, continue walking down the road, and sell old Elsie to the nearest Mickey D's. But Jack isn't ordinary. Jack, like each member of this class, is extraordinary. This spring, roughly 3 million seniors will graduate high school and move down the road. But I know that the 59 girls sitting beside me are all confident, capable women prepared to do that which is extraordinary. In this class, I know we have graduates with the intellectual curiosity to be another Steve Jobs, the passion to be like Nikola Tesla, the creativity to become the next Ansel Adams, and the selflessness to follow in the path of a Mother Teresa. I've been honored to be in your midst and know that, like Jack, we all have the capacity to be extraordinary. Seeing the future is a gift, but being brave enough to act on these ideas is also critical. Our boy Jack teaches us how we can be brave. One could argue that incurring his mother's wrath when having to explain his clever trade of beans for cow required courage. Climbing the beanstalk and facing the scary giant at the top was obviously bold. We too must be brave. I have seen courage at the convent. Earlier this year, I actually witnessed a few of my classmates ask Miss O'Grady for their sweatshirts back after they were taken away for uniform violations. I've also seen bravery on the fields of competition. Great lacrosse victories, my classmates fleet of foot, volleyball spikes against opponents who were supposed to be stronger but couldn't dominate us. Victories on the water, on the front nine, in the pool, all show courage, bravery, and determination at their finest. We've also learned of more profound bravery. I'm talking about the bravery exhibited by St. Philippine Duchenne, leaving her home and traveling to a new land with new people and strange traditions in an effort to bring schools and education to those without. Similarly, we need to be inspired by the bravery of Malala, standing up to the Taliban, demanding that all girls have the right to an education. These are brave women of great courage, but how can we continue to walk bravely into what is an ever-changing world? As a class, we don't have to confront the Taliban to show valor. Apologizing to someone we've wronged, standing up to a bully, and even loving wholeheartedly and without judgment are small acts of bravery that each person is capable of. We need the courage to be responsible and live with integrity. We need to dare to speak up and express that which is important to us. We need to be like Jack and be brave enough to dream big and proceed boldly into the unknown. You know what else I like about Jack? Jack was a problem solver. Back to the story, once Jack has slipped through the giant's house and escaped almost certain death, he's greeted with one last choice. Jack sees a basket full of eggs, solid gold eggs, right next to the magical golden goose that laid them. Jack can only carry either the eggs or the goose, so what should he do? Jack, my hero, solves the problem by going for the goose, plain and simple. But if we want to get somewhat philosophical here, this dilemma becomes infinitely more interesting. The eggs could represent instant gratification, and the goose, a representative of a longer-term answer to a pressing need. Our education here at CSH gives us the intellectual preparation to meet our immediate challenge, getting into college, which we all did, yes, success. Thanks. But more importantly, CSH helps us recognize the value of the goose, the value of being lifelong learners. In these hallowed halls, we've not just learned what to think, but more significantly, how to think. Life is a constant evaluation of risk and reward. We do it all the time, but what will define us is our ability to navigate problem solving creatively. Our ability to solve problems is our opportunity to create change, and in doing so, our opportunity to change the world. If you take nothing away from this speech, just remember this: #go for the goose. Finally, with this last one, I'm going to take a little creative license. The last thing about Jack is that he was a man of faith. Actually, there's absolutely nothing in the story that speaks to this, and I'm sure Signora Sidoli is in the crowd shaking her head, as she taught me never to inject my own opinions into the analyzing of literature. But nevertheless, Jack is not naive, but rather trusting that God has a plan for him and for his future. Our community is devoted to a personal and active faith in God. From Espacio every morning to chapel at break to all school liturgies once a month, we're devoted to a personal and active faith in God. Bottom line, without our faith, where would any of us be? Obviously, Jack knew this to be true. In conclusion, the story of Jack and the Beanstalk is an adventure. Jack is an adventurer, and aren't we as well? Without reluctance, Jack eagerly starts climbing the massive weed in his yard and soon enters an entirely new world. Today, we stand at the edge of our own beanstalk. We're leaving behind the comfort and familiarity of the convent in exchange for new surroundings, new people, and new uniforms. In many ways, college is completely different. Miss Angelillo isn't there to check us in every morning. Mr. Allison doesn't welcome us off the bus. And to much of my personal dismay, it's no longer socially acceptable to wear the same plaid skirt and blue sweater every day. Today marks the beginning of a new adventure, and while a little intimidating, we can be confident in the fact that Sacred Heart has provided us with all the tools we need to succeed. We may not have 5 magic beans, but we do have a Sacred Heart education, and the experiences that we've shared here. The climb to the top, just like Jack's ascent, is long and arduous. But with the work ethic and conviction that Sacred Heart has instilled in us, I'm positive that we'll be able to soar to new heights. Congratulations to the extraordinary class of 2014. Thank you.